It's crazy how fast the news moves these days, right? Like
Right.
1 minute, something's huge. It's all everyone's talking about. And then poof, gone.
Yeah, totally. It's like a whirlwind.
Remember that whole thing with the drones over New Jersey? It was maybe a month or so ago.
Oh, yeah, vaguely. Lots of theories floating around back then.
It was everywhere. Headlines, online, you name it. All these reports of tons of unidentified flying objects, or, well, drones, I guess is more accurate, over New Jersey. And the speculation, out of control. I even remember some Republicans, and even Donald Trump himself, tossing around the idea that it could be China doing some sneaky reconnaissance.
Wow, so people were pretty freaked out.
Oh, yeah, some were definitely on edge. But then, just like that, the whole thing just disappeared. Story over. And you're kind of left with this feeling like, wait, what was that all about? What really happened?
Yeah, it's like a cliffhanger with no ending.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack this whole mystery of the New Jersey drones. We've been looking at some really interesting stuff, specifically a transcript from a YouTube channel called The Ring of Fire. It's from a video titled, Trump Administration Says They've Solved the Mystery of the New Jersey Drones. So our goal today is to figure out what actually happened with those drone sightings, to get past all the initial craziness and speculation and see if we can find some real answers.
I'm all for some clarity on a story that just kind of vanished.
Right. So where did this supposed solution come from? Well, according to the Ring of Fire transcript, the explanation came directly from, get this, Donald Trump's press secretary at the time, Caroline Leavitt. And she even claimed she was sharing info straight from President Trump in the Oval Office. Pretty official, huh?
Definitely sounds like they were trying to make a statement.
So what was the official word? Levi basically said that after a bunch of research and study, they determined that all those drones people were seeing over New Jersey, they were actually authorized by the FAA. Not for one specific thing, but for a whole bunch of research and various other reasons. But that's not all. She also mentioned that a lot of these drones were just regular folks flying them, like hobbyists and people just messing around. And here's where it gets interesting. She said the reason there were so many sightings was partly because of curiosity. Like someone sees one, then everyone starts looking up, and suddenly everyone's seeing drones. And her big takeaway, this was not the enemy. What'd you think of that explanation?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? And I think she makes a good point about the curiosity thing. Like, the more people are talking about it, the more people start seeing things, even if they're not really there.
Totally. And it's interesting how that official explanation kind of lines up with what some people were saying at the time, like the folks over at the Ring of Fire. They actually talked about the drones when it was all happening. And it sounds like they were already leaning towards a more normal, everyday explanation. Like, they pointed out that this whole thing happened right around Christmas. And what do people get for Christmas a lot?
Drones. It's like the hot new tech gift.
Exactly. So they were thinking that maybe a lot of these sightings were just people trying out their brand new Christmas presents. Makes sense with the timing, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like a sudden spike in people flying drones around the holidays. Seems pretty likely.
But here's where things get a little messy. The video host mentions that they got some pushback, especially from some people on the left who just wouldn't buy the idea that these were all just hobby drones. And they'd even point to stuff law enforcement was saying about how big some of these drones supposedly were. What do you think that kind of conflicting info does to the whole story?
Oh, it definitely throws a wrench in things. Like, when you've got different stories, especially from official sources like law enforcement, it makes people start questioning the easy answers.
Absolutely. And this leads to a point the Ring of Fire host makes, this idea of collective stupidity. What they're saying is, when something weird happens, and there's no clear explanation right away, and the government's not saying anything to calm people down, well, people's imaginations start running wild. And it becomes this kind of groupthink situation where everyone's latching onto wilder and wilder theories. Ever seen that kind of thing happen before?
Oh, yeah, all the time. When people don't have solid information, they start looking for patterns, coming up with their own explanations. And often it's influenced by what other people are saying or what they already believe, even if it's not true. Social media can make it even worse.
Totally. And to really show how this can happen, they tell this story about the local sheriff's office. At first, they were saying some of these things they saw were the size of cars. But later on, it turned out, what they were actually seeing were small planes, like single-engine bi-wing planes, not drones at all. That's a pretty big mistake, right? Makes you wonder about how reliable eyewitness accounts really are in these kinds of situations.
Definitely shows how easy it is to misinterpret things, especially when you're talking about something unfamiliar and maybe you're a little stressed or unsure about what's going on. Those first reports can be totally off.
No kidding. So, back when this was all going down, the host of The Ring of Fire had a pretty simple suggestion. Check the FAA records, look at the flight logs. They figured if these were all legitimate flights, there should be paperwork for them, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Like if it was research or even commercial stuff, there should be records of where these drones were supposed to be.
Well, guess what? According to Leavitt's announcement, that's exactly what the official investigation did. They went through the flight logs, and guess what they found? Every single drone sighting was accounted for. So it seems like the most basic explanation was actually the right one all along. Kind of says something about all that initial panic, doesn't it?
Yeah, sometimes the simplest answer is the right one, but it's easy to get caught up in the hype and the fear, especially when things are first happening.
For sure. Now, the Ring of Fire host does have some criticism, and it's aimed at President Biden. Their point is that the White House should have gotten out in front of this whole thing way sooner, told everyone what was actually going on with these drones. They even say maybe Biden was just busy at the time. What do you think about the role of leaders in situations like this?
Oh, it's super important for leaders to speak up and communicate clearly, especially when things are uncertain. Getting ahead of a story like this can really help to keep people calm and prevent rumors from spreading.
Absolutely. And they also point out that it wasn't just a federal thing. Local officials in New Jersey, including the governor, could have also stepped up and said something to reassure people. But for whatever reason, that didn't really happen at first. Any thoughts on why there might be a delay in official responses sometimes?
Could be a bunch of reasons. It takes time to figure out what's actually going on, to get all the facts straight. Maybe they don't want to say something that turns out to be wrong later. And sometimes different groups need to work together to get a response out, which can take time too.
Makes sense. So to sum it all up, the big reveal is that the mystery drones over New Jersey were actually pretty normal stuff. FAA-approved research, people having fun with their new toys, and regular folks flying drones. Not exactly the spy thriller some people were imagining. Kind of reminds us that the most exciting explanation isn't always the right one, huh?
Yeah, good reminder to maybe wait for all the facts before jumping to conclusions.
Definitely. So, wrapping things up, what are the big takeaways for you? We saw how quickly people can get freaked out, how speculation can spin out of control and even turn into national security worries. And then we have the final explanation, which is way more mundane, but probably closer to the truth. It really makes you think about how effective communication from officials is or isn't in these situations.
It shows how easily rumors can fill the gaps when there's no real information. Makes you realize how important it is for those in charge to give people accurate updates, and quickly.
Totally. So it leaves you with this question. Why do things that seem pretty simple sometimes blow up into huge, scary events? What does this story tell us about how we handle the unknown, especially with all the information flying around these days? Like, how do you react when you see a story like this breaking?
I think it shows how we're always trying to make sense of things, and when we don't have answers, we tend to fill in the blanks ourselves, even if it means jumping to conclusions or letting our biases take over. And yeah, the speed of news and information these days doesn't help.
So now that this mystery is solved, it makes you wonder, what other weird events that have kind of faded from the news might actually have pretty normal explanations? Maybe the key is to always look a little deeper, dig a little further before we let our imaginations run wild.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. Encourages a more critical approach to what we read and hear.
Exactly. Well, on that note, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was an interesting discussion.
Until next time.